Hey everybody, it's Ron and Ellie back for another week's edition of Ask Ron. First up this week is Clark Winkle in Missouri.
Hey Clark.
Clark says, I have a seller who lives out of state. What is the best way to handle the signing of the lease purchase agreement?
Well, there's only one way, Clark. First you need to go see the house and make sure you got all the details together. Then you get an oral agreement, and then you just email him the lease purchase agreement. There is no other way if he's out of state. Make sure that he's the only owner now, because you'll need him and his wife's signature, so you want to ask that as well. And you'll be using the short form lease option agreement on your Gold Club, not the one with the table of contents.
Okay, next up is Karen Martin in Ohio.
Hey Karen.
Karen's got a question about LLCs. She says, we hold rental properties in LLCs and IRAs, and I have a separate LLC in which I am running my real estate investment business. We have property insurance on the rentals, but I'm wondering if you recommend error and omission insurance to protect us from lawsuits that could arise.
No. That's very, very expensive, and it doesn't even apply in your case. I heard you say you own properties in your IRA. That is absolutely deadly, deadly, deadly. I want you to go back a couple of weeks and pull up a lesson I did on how to properly title properties that are owned by your IRA and how to handle your IRA so that you're not going back and forth with your third-party administrator every time you want a check cut or deposit a rent slip. You never, ever have your IRA on title, period. And you should own properties in a land trust. And then if you want the land trust to be owned by an LLC, so be it. Or if it's an IRA deal, you want the land trust to be owned by the LLC your IRA owns. Go back and look at the lesson and you'll see that. Very, very important for you.
Okay, next up is another question on the LLC video you just mentioned from Roberta Eastman in California.
Hey Roberta.
Her first question is, does the IRA pay for both the beneficiary and trustee LLC setup fees and other fees that might come up?
If the IRA opens an LLC, then the IRA doesn't pay the fee directly. It deposits money into the LLC to open the LLC or to form the corporation, which is what you want to put on your direction of investment form. And then the corporation writes the check for the opening fees. If that cannot be done, and honestly I can tell you that your corporation will not be able to write a check till it has a bank account, and it probably can't get a bank account till it gets an EIN number, so whatever, forget everything I just told you. You're probably going to have to write the check out of the IRA first to open up the LLC, and then when you get those things, go open a bank account, and then from there on all money comes out of your LLC.
Okay, Roberta's next question is, in California, we pay $800 a year to a tax board to have an LLC.
You can move.
Sure, question is, does your LLC and IRA have to be in the same state to avoid that cost? Hopefully?
Well, you need to get some local advice on that. I do know this. If you do an LLC in Nevada, it is true, it's cheaper, but it's also true California is going to want state taxes on the sale, on the gains. But in your IRA, I don't know if that matters. So you are probably going to have to get some local advice on that. I'm really not qualified to answer that question for you.
Okay. Her last question says, what's the best resource to learn what you mentioned we need to know about self-directing rules?
I'd learn them. There's plenty of rules right on the websites. Whoever you're using has a website with all the rules right there. Then of course you could always pull it down from, if you wanted to, from the IRS code, which I don't think you want to do that, but they're right there. I don't know who you're using, but they have a website, and surely they have a place where you can learn the regs.
Okay, next up from California is our favorite...
you know, you could order my IRA course, because they're all right there as well, but I wouldn't want you to do anything the easy way. So.
Next up is Marianne Nunes from California too, Ron.
Oh, Marianne.
I know you missed her.
Yeah.
Her first question says, she sent you in a deal last week, and she's clarifying a little bit. So, she said, I own a home in Oklahoma in my name. I'm renting it to tenants, and I would like to offer them owner financing. I paid $153,000 in 2008 with $30,000 down, and I owe $116,000 with PITI being $785.
That's good.
The comps are for $189,000, and there are also some association fees of $100 per year.
Okay.
What would be the least I should accept for a down payment, and what purchase price do you recommend I offer?
Well, if you say it's worth $189, I'd pump it up to at least $199. I do recall that getting the house back in Oklahoma is not that difficult if they default on you, but you better check that out. I'd always go for 20% down. You ought to get at least, in fact, I'd go to get your $30,000 down. But got to know, Marion, that might mean it'd be on the market a little while. So you really need to put it out there. You don't name the down payment. You let the market tell you how much it can put down, and then you're going to take the best offer you get over a period of 30 to 60 days. Don't be in a rush. Don't be in a rush. I got a house right now that I want 25 grand out of. I've already been offered somewhat less than that, but I'm holding out. And I'm just not going to be in a rush. And if you own this house with that small a payment on it, you're better making the payment with the house vacant than you are taking somebody putting them in the house and not getting enough down. I tell you this much, 20 grand would be the minimum that I'd accept, or it's set there vacant, assuming now that it's in good condition and ready to sell. Now, by the way, the association fee is passed on to the buyer when you sell it with owner financing, not your concern.
She's got one more question. Can you give her an example of what to say in the letter to the current tenant so she can offer them owner financing?
Oh, come on, Mary. If you got a tenant in it right now, which you didn't tell me here this week, by the way, don't assume I remember anything we did last week, girl. I don't know what I had for breakfast this morning. So you just write them a letter and say, hey, I'd be interested in selling the house and may even consider owner financing if you're interested in buying it. If you are interested, call me and let's have a chat. That's it. Not hard.
Okay, next up is David Robinson down in Tennessee. He's got two questions for you, Ron.
Okay, David.
First one says, I want to target potential subject to deals in my newest seller marketing direct mail campaign.
No, you don't, David. You want to target FSBOs who will give you terms. Terms mean subject to, buying with owner financing, or lease purchasing. You don't target subject to, you target sellers, and then you get the property information sheet filled out, and then that will tell you whether you're going to do a subject to deal or not when they say I'll sell for what I owe.
Do you have any specific lists in mind that he should mail out to?
Yeah, homeowners. Homeowners, man. You got to pick the area, the zip code you want to go to, and what price ranges you want to mail to. And then there's the free and clear list. A good list that seems to be working pretty well right now are vacant houses without a town owners. So you want to try that one first. I think you can get that at Melissa Data without any problem. But honestly, we just picked, in our case in Jacksonville, I'm mailing to houses, a few mailers, to 500 and up, and I just picked the zip codes and mail a couple hundred a week. That's all we're doing right now. Honestly, you can get all the leads you want by having a VA call for sale by owner ads and getting for sale by owner signs in front of houses and sending them to your VAs, and running free ads on the websites like Craigslist and Zillow and Trulia. Mailing yellow letters work, they always work, but you don't really have to do that. There are a lot cheaper ways to get all the sellers you're going to be able to handle. You mail yellow letters when you want to target a specific target.
He's got one more question about the mail campaign, speaking of targeting.
Okay.
So since this would be a targeted direct mail campaign, should I do a single mailer campaign of, let's say, 700 people with the yellow letter, or should I do a multi-step?
You do one letter only and don't mail more than a couple, 300 at a time. Do not mail 700 letters at one time. You cannot handle the flow unless you screw up the letter and don't get a reasonable number of calls. I mail 200 at a time, and then if you want to ramp up, ramp up. But I'm going to say it again, man. You mail yellow letters only if you don't get enough leads doing the other stuff. Now you think about it. You pay a VA, our top price for a VA is $697 a month, and that's with all those other widgets and gadgets. That's with the website and the IVR and the database and the Gold Club dues paid and all this other pile of stuff. For $697 a month, your lead problem is over. You don't have to mail any yellow letters. You're going to spend far more than that mailing yellow letters and still got to get a VA to call them. So do it my way first. Go to the yellow letters as a last resort. I'm telling you, there's a good chance you never will need to go to the yellow letters.
Okay, our next question is from Jim Dahl in Missouri.
Hey, Jim.
Jim says, I have an axe deal where the house was free and clear, but now it has a line of credit for $250,000 on a $300,000 property.
Okay.
There are no structured monthly payments, so would it have to be refinanced and the line of credit closed?
No, you might be better off just lease optioning it. Then the bank can't call the loan due, and then put a lease option tenant buyer in there and keep whatever you get from the deposit, and then let them cash it out whenever they can.
Okay, our last question this week comes from another Californian, Ron Carruthers. Ron says, Ron, you've mentioned differences in the language for scripts focused on high-end homes. Could you give an example of some differences in what you say when you're pre-screening?
It's all in the big chunks and big money and big chunks course. You need to get that if you don't have it already. Contact our office, because not just one script. There's several scripts in there, and they are different. Especially when the intent, which it usually is on high-end houses, is to make darn sure that the seller knows that we have no intention of buying it until we plug in a buyer, and we're going to keep the difference on the down payment or whatever. Those scripts are a little different than the ones you'll find in your Control Without Ownership course. So by all means, get the big money, big chunks course if you don't have it.
Okay, his next question says, my mentors, the Wolves, have discussed using a round-robin auction as a potential exit strategy for a couple houses. Could you please go into some detail about what a round-robin is and what it does?
So you want me to do that on this Q&A call, huh? Okay.
Maybe this would be another lesson video around?
Yeah, that is. Write that one down and we will do a lesson video on that. But to tell you the truth, you got to start with, what am I trying to do? Am I trying to cash out of this thing? Or am I doing a round-robin auction to where I'm just going for the highest down payment? Because both of them are done. The second one is a lot easier. Round-robin auction is really not necessary. I think if you just have an open house on Saturday, especially if you're going for a down payment, and parade through the open house and let them leave, let them tell you before they leave if they want it, and the most they can pay down, that's a lot easier. And you might find a cash buyer out of that. But the key is to make sure that you get all of their cell phone numbers and text them the day before and the day of the open house. You don't need but a couple hour open house max. That's all you need. So, and that should be on Saturday. So if you drive in there with a text, assuming you build a buyer's list, and if you haven't, you really need to build a buyer's list first, because if you don't and you just try to openly advertise this thing, you're not going to get a very big show up. So I would run some ads and build me a buyer's list first, and then follow that with an open house on Saturday, and you probably don't need to do a round robin. It's way more complicated to do a round robin auction.
That's all the questions we have for you this week, Ron.
All right, guys, listen, in case you don't know it, on November the 15th and the 16th now, I am taping a whole new course called Terms. It is the newer version of the Control Without Ownership course. I'm working on it right now, and I'm surprised at how much I'm changing in this thing. Got to update the whole thing. I mean, look, it won't even be the Control Without Ownership course anymore. It is going to be about Control Without Ownership, but it's going to be about lease options, sandwich lease options, ACTs, and owner financing all in one course, because that's the reality of it. We go out and we find leads. We got to know what to do with these leads and when to do what with them. So it's going to be an intense 2-day thing. Good news is you can attend live or you can attend online. So make sure you get registered for that. If you haven't gotten the invitation already, set those dates right now. November 15 and 16. We will be simulcasting it, and that's almost as good as live, but we're going to be doing live deals during the class, and the only way you can get in on that is to come to the live event here in Jacksonville and bring lead sheets with you. So it's only $497, so I don't think you want to miss that. And you're going to get my new manual as part of that package. So if you in fact, if you haven't got an invitation yet, it'll be on this week's Friday's newsletter. So make darn sure you open the Friday's newsletter. And incidentally, if you're getting this and you're not getting that Friday newsletter every week, that you got to let us know, because it goes out every single Friday. That's Elliot's whole life. That's all he thinks about. That's all he cares about in life, is that newsletter. He gets it out to you every Friday. So you really ought to be opening that thing. There's a lot of good content on it, and probably 2 or 3 good lessons that I put on it every single week. So with that said, I'll see you next week.